Welcome everyone to this chapter where we are going to examine the London system, and the funny thing about this is that this video is probably going to be one of the most important ones in this whole course, simply because the London is such an important and very much played opening nowadays. Now comes the whole essence of this whole video, which is this move knight c6. There are of course many different alternatives for black, like knight d7 is fully playable, b6 is possible as well. But I really like this idea with knight c6 because, as I said in the beginning, it does set up a small trap already, and we do have quite a simple plan of continuing from now on. So what happens at first if white continues with a very logical move, short castle? Now we get e5 immediately. Hang on, Felix, isn't the pawn on e5 hanging? It is, but it is not at the same time. White can take, and he's a pawn up for the moment, but we gain it back on the next move if we go knight e4 now. Because the point is white cannot take on d6 now, because then the pawn on b2 is going to be hanging and white is losing material. And if white does something like c3, then we can just take back comfortably on e5, and generally white doesn't even want to take this pawn on e5 because then his whole London setup is sort of broken and he typically wants to keep this pawn on d4. And for example like this, queen e7, then rook d8 is coming and black is already a bit more comfortable in this position. So white probably shouldn't take on e5, but go back to h2 perhaps. And now I said already earlier that often we play knight d7. Here it is possible, but now white has the chance to play c4 in one go. And now he gets knight c3, still the position is playable, but this is the type of setup which white should try to get if we go for this type of plan. But here we have the upside that first of all, we could play queen e7, which is also very natural. But the move which I like the most is just to capture on d4. And after e takes d4, then rook e8, for example, c3. And this type of structure, I think, is very much playable, because this pawn on d6, of course, we have less space. But on the other hand, this pawn on the bishop on h2 is very much restricted. And there was one final nice point, which was the move a6, just preparing b6 and bishop b7. Fianchettoing the bishop. b6 immediately is also possible, but at least it does allow white to get some play with bishop b5. So that's why I thought a6 is a nice way to conclude this variation, followed by b6 and bishop b7.